Okay, so what else will be watched when it comes to implementation and outcomes of legislation? For that, we're going to bring in Joe Paris and Andrew Bartline, who have been covering all that is going on at the State House these past 3+ months. And of course, each side of the chamber, each side of the aisle has a different take on how they think things went this session. So Joe, we're going to start with you, okay? With this post-sine die perspective, the winners and the losers here.
Sine die, if you may. Okay, so in terms of accomplishments, the Idaho GOP, we'll start with them. Across the board, they are thrilled with House Bill 521. Originally, that was pitched by Governor Little, and that was the massive package that includes investments into school facilities, tax cuts, and as a result of all of it, property tax relief. And Governor Little, he pitched the idea on day one, and a lot of people were wondering what this would actually look like in the end. I asked House Speaker Mike Moyle this afternoon if he thinks that this final law matches the original concept.
Yeah, it does. You know, we said we were going to do some income tax relief. It's in the bill. We said we were going to do some property tax. It's in the bill. And it's ongoing. And we said we were going to use some of the sales tax revenue to pay for some buildings. And every school district gets money based on how many students they have attending school. So, no, yeah, it's great. It's a great bill.
Okay, so this whole it's in the bill, this thing covered a lot of ground. This one particular bill, some people refer to it as the go home bill. We heard it referred to on the Senate floor as the Christmas tree bill for all its lights and decorations that were included in this thing. But more accurately, I guess, it could be described as this see you in court bill, right, Andrew?
Yeah, and we'll get to that. That's part of the perception of the Democrats and even some Republicans, too. Some people question how this exactly appeals to the single interest piece that legislation is supposed to fall into. But typically, the Democrats are not ones to complain about funding for school facilities. Governor Brad Little said in his State of the State that he wants $2 billion invested over the next decade. And 521 is not going to fulfill that full appetite. But the Dems, again, are more concerned with how it's constructed. Legislation is supposed to have a single subject, and the variety in 521 is a problem if someone chooses to make it one.
Even frankly, the school facilities bill is flagrantly unconstitutional. It clearly violates the single subject rule. I think they're just counting on nobody suing. But if anybody wants to bring an easy to win lawsuit, that's the one. I see no scenario in which that survives constitutional challenge. So those are just the smattering. But yeah, we gave a lot of fodder to the lawyers by passing illegal and unconstitutional laws this year.
For a lawsuit to be filed, you have to have an injured party. So I guess we'll wait to see if somebody files a complaint on that. In the meantime, we know that there are plenty of other laws that Democrats openly oppose this session.
Yeah, and the reality of that specifically, the minority party plays defense on a lot of pieces of legislation. They oppose the no public funds for gender transition. They oppose the regulations of libraries Brian just spoke about, and then further restrictions on the initiative process with paid signature gatherers. But Rebel was quick to boast some Democratic wins as well, with a nod to working across the aisle.
We stayed true to our word. We were focused on real issues that benefit real people. Housing, for one thing, making sure we have protections for renters with Senator Robbie's bill. Facilitating in-home daycare, really important given the child crisis we have. I had some bills I was very excited about in terms of addressing our fentanyl crisis by legalizing test strips, addressing deep fakes in elections, trying to make sure we have integrity in our elections by protecting against deep fake impersonations. We feel that the best bills are the bipartisan bills, and often it's a Democrat kind of driving the bill, but we will bring along a Republican co-sponsor, and we greatly appreciate their participation in the process and their help, and we couldn't do it without them.
On the other side of that, the Republicans can get a lot done without the Democrats' help because there's not too many of them there. Okay, so what about what didn't get done this session, Joe?
It's interesting because it's something that's been talked about for years, and honestly, if we were to come into the session in January and say, what is the one thing that gets done? A lot of you would have an education-related thought, but certainly, yes, things the majority party wanted didn't get done. And I asked Speaker Moyle about what sticks out. No surprises with his answer.
I'd like to get the school choice issue resolved. We've had that debate the last 2 years, and I was hoping we could find a path forward on that this year. And, you know, that issue is not going to go away. We need to find a solution. And that's one that I wish we could have found a solution to. We'll get the groups together. Something will happen on that next year. We'll get that resolved. And there'll be a lot of debate on that. But I think if everybody will come together, we can find a path that everybody agrees to that will help our students and our families, not hurt the schools, and that everybody can be happy with. And that's the goal.
Okay, so you may be watching and say, hold on a second, Joe. A few weeks ago, you said a new piece of legislation was just put into committee with school vouchers. That is correct. And I asked Speaker Moyle about that. It was his legislation. He said that will be the blueprint moving into next year. So we will see how that flies.
First one's already on the table. All right. Okay, so the only thing the legislature is legally required to do is leave the session with a balanced budget, pass all the budgets. In every session lately, it seems it's been a budget that's been, well, keeping them hanging around longer than they likely intended. This year, it was the Idaho Transportation Department budget. What happened with that?
Okay, so as you may recall, the ITD budget was very controversial, not really because of what was in it, but actually the language, the intent language. There was language in the bill that said, well, we're going to kill the sale of the State Street campus in Boise. So one of two really big questions coming into the day. We know the library bill is signed, but the ITD budget, it went into law without Governor Little's signature. And some lawmakers liked the decision. Others wondered if this is going to hurt Idaho's reputation in terms of doing business. But House Speaker Mike Moyle, he shared his thoughts, and he's more concentrated on what was in the bill.
Hey, that bill had a lot of money for roads. And if you've seen the growth around this state right now, what's happening, we need that money. We need that money on the roads. And so I was glad it became the law. And it has the money necessary to do a lot of projects around the Treasure Valley and every part of the state, actually. And so, no, I'm glad there. And also has some money, rural money for bridges, $200 million there for our friends throughout rural Idaho. So it's a good bill, and I'm glad it's law.
Okay, so that's, well, I mean, that's their determination. Obviously, you're getting different sides of this because the Democratic side of this is kind of more concerned about the long-term effects of passing this ITD budget, which kills the sale of the State Street complex.
Yeah, kind of regardless of whether it's a good deal or not, the Democrats are sort of in this position of it's a deal that you made. Blocking that ITD building sale, they say, is bad for the state's reputation. And that's not a uniquely Democratic take. There are some Republicans that felt that way too. And the state originally did agree to a deal. And Rebel says they should follow through with that deal. And the governor appealing to both sides and letting it to become law without his signature, it didn't mean a whole lot to her.
So I think we're setting a really dangerous precedent by just saying everything is on shifting sands. You might think you have a deal, but if that deal is with the state, all bets may be off the second this legislature walks in the building. We're going to get worse deals. We might have a hard time finding anybody who wants to do deals with the government if this is our method of doing business.
And with the block sale, Representative Rebel is right. Private business and developers have told us that it does hurt the state's reputation, their willingness to work with the state. We now have a statement from the winning bid who's supposed to buy that building, and we can throw it up for you right now. They say, we're obviously extremely disappointed in the passage of this legislation. This governmental overreach is a massive waste of taxpayer dollars, and we're confident the courts will agree this kind of legislative interference in the free market violates the state constitution. We will be exploring legal action. So long translation, Brian, we will see you in court.
And that could be the case for a couple of other bills. And I was thinking specifically about the sex gender synonym bill. That's the one that makes those two synonymous. That one could end up in court soon if they just have fined an injured party, because that one has been proven to be, well, I guess, legal issues in other states when it comes to this. Okay, so this whole idea of not signing this bill and just kind of letting it become law, it's not a first time, obviously, but what's your take on this, Joe?
I think when I speak to lawmakers down at the State House, and I was speaking to a handful of Republicans after it came out, they told me, we're not surprised, and we understand why the governor did this. At the same time, though, I did hear from Democrats that say, and kind of what Andrew alluded to, is if you're going to make a statement, make one. So at the same time, though, there are those I've spoken with in the State House, and we'd have to ask the governor for his opinion on this, because he's the one that made these decisions. But kind of the word I'm hearing is, look, the governor didn't see it as his place to come in and take this giant action, clearly, because he didn't. There is a conversation, though, about the line item veto power that the governor did have.
Yeah, he does have that, I believe, with budgets, with appropriations bills, no other bill, but just those.
So we'll find out, I guess, if we'll hear from the governor hopefully in the coming days or next week about his process here. But I can tell you there's plenty of people down at the State House that were talking about that, and they found it very interesting that the governor, I mean, he made no action, and that is an action.
It is true. All right.
Same result.
Same result.
Yeah.
But different political points.
If Rebel was inclined to believe that. She seemed not in, it didn't win any favor with the Dems, I would say.
Yeah. Anyways, election next month, so we'll see what happens with all this.
All right. Thank you, Joe and Andrew, for all of your coverage. You guys have done this very well throughout these 3+ months. I really appreciate it.
We got to do regular news now.
Yeah. We're going to find some stuff.
Yeah, send us your story pitches. Also, Brian, you dug in too, so don't give us the